Alright, so today we are going to learn about the third declension, the final common declension of nouns that we're going to really see in Latin. And before we go any farther, let's pause and do a little retrieval practice. What do I mean when I say the word declension in Latin? What's the first and the second declension? What does this concept entail? Pause the video to do this retrieval, and then I will provide an answer. So, declensions are essentially a pattern of noun endings, which signify what case a noun is in a sentence, whether it's nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, or ablative. Every noun only has one set of endings. And so it could be first declension, second declension, or third declension. We've learned the first and second declension. Before we learn the third, we're going to retrieve those. But just so we're all on the same page, we're now going to learn a third set of endings, a third group of nouns that have these endings as signal markers. And this is really important because it's going to give us access to a whole universe of more Latin words that we can now use, including some words that we've actually seen before and have talked about. Pater, mater, soror, father, mother, sister, and some of your own very own names like Aistas, et Pax. So let's dive in now. We've seen a couple examples also of these words in the mini sentences we did during class the other day. Puella passerem amat. Senex puta. Which of these words is third declension? There are two of them here. Some of you may have identified passerem and senex, and you would be correct, right? We haven't seen these em or ex endings on nouns before, but now we have. And I bet you could have translated these even, and you did in class, translate these even without knowing the declension. But we want to know the declension. So let's move on. Before we go on to the new forms, though, let's get the old forms down. So pause the video now and do a declension of puella and puer, like you see in the boxes below. If you don't have a piece of paper in front of you, now would be a great time to get one. Open up to your notes and start a section titled The Third Declension, or Third Declension Video, so you know this is the notes on the video. All right, so let's dive in. Pause the video if you need time to decline these. Here are the forms. Puella, puellai, puellai, puellam, puella, puellai, puellarm, puellis, puellas, puellis, puer, pueri, puero, puerum, puero, pueri, puerorum, pueris, pueros, pueris. This is first declension, and the only set of endings that puella, puellai, feminine has are these endings. You cannot put second declension endings on puella because it's a first declension word. It only ever has this one set of endings. Similarly with puer, it's only going to have these second declension endings because it's a noun in the second declension, which means that we know that it has this pattern of case endings. E orum, e o o, e orum, e sosis. Okay? Just to reiterate that. We did learn one other set of endings, which were second declension. Before we move on, sorry. Here are the endings in isolation, which I just repeated, right? And now we did learn one other declension, which was sort of a subset of the second declension. We had second declension masculine, but we also had second declension neuter. And this is the one that I should reiterate. And remember the difference between the neuter, bellum, and the masculine puer. We see, take a second, pause the video, and identify the differences again. Yep, it was in the nominative singular and plural, and in the accusative plural. And we saw the a's here in place of eos, and bellum in place of puer. All right? So these were all the declensions we've learned so far. So keeping these in mind, feeling comfortable with these, maybe you want to do one more practice so that before we learn a new set of endings, you can have these, the first and second declensions, that much more tightly in your mind. But otherwise, we're going to learn the new forms. All right? So pause the video if you need it. Here it comes. All right, so new case ending pattern. I'm going to read through it once. Pox, peace. Pockets of peace. Pocky, 2 or 4 piece. Pacem, piece, direct object. Pake, by or with piece. Pockings. This noun, this word we're not going to see as often. Pacum, pacibus, paces, pacibus. Okay? Obviously the word peace, as in P-E-A-C-E, will not often be used in the plural. Moving on to looking at just these forms themselves. Is, E-M-E, A's, ibus, A's, ibus. Remembering that E with a macron pronounced like an A-Y, and the I with a macron pronounced like an E-E, so like E. And we notice something funky here right off the bat. The nominative, we just are going to draw a dash. And that's because if you look at your vocab for this chapter, you may have noticed that there are a lot of odd nominatives. We had pox, we had senex, we had passer. Let's drag this out. We had soror, we have amor. So as opposed to the other declensions, like the first declension where it was wia, wita, puella, nauta, and we could always count on that nominative being an A, or in the second declension where we could count on it being an ER or a US, like puer and ager and amicus and filius, we no longer have that regularity with the nominative. If you see an ending that you don't recognize, right, odds are that that word is a nominative, is a third declension noun. So like kikero, its dictionary info is kikero, kikeronis, because you don't recognize that O ending as being a nominative. Similarly, aistas, the name of Michelle's Latin name, is actually aistas aistatis, also third declension. Okay, so same with odiosis. His genitive is also odiosis, and he's also third declension. Okay, so that's a weird oddity of the third declension. They don't have a regular neuter nominative. They don't have a regular nominative singular case ending. Now we look at these other forms, and before we go any farther, what I'd like you to do is we're just going to compare this to the forms we already know. So take a moment, pause the video, and I'll give you a second to pause the video soon. Just hear the instructions first. What you should do is look at these new endings and compare them to the endings of the first and the second declension, and just see where patterns emerge. Remember, the endings don't have to be identical, but do we see some general similarities, either between cases or similar cases that are the same, where the endings are the same in every declension, things like that. Okay, so pause the video and try that now, and then I'll walk through some of the ones that I would like you to notice. All right, we're moving on. So first off the bat is the accusative. Really, really common accusative direct object, right? The thing that receives the action of an active verb. I love the girl. I see the boy. Or I love peace. Pacem amo. We're going to use the accusative, and we notice in every declension we have a nice vowel plus M in the singular, vowel plus S in the plural, right? So as, os, ace. So that's a nice commonality that can help us continue to recognize. That's why we were able to recognize probably puella passerem amat, even without knowing the third declension. Next up, we have the dative and ablative plural. Again, the dative and ablative plural are the same. It's just now it's ibus instead of is. So that instead of is, it's ibus, but they're the same forms. And we notice is, os, is, as, is, ibus, ace, ibus. That pattern kind of remains too. So that will hopefully be pretty easy to pick up. It's a good thing to note. Okay, so the dative and ablative plural is still the same. Next up is that ablative singular. We still just have a vowel by itself. So we had A with a macron, O with a macron. Now we just have E, no macron. So that's another thing. When we see a word with just a vowel on the end, it's usually a good hint that that word has a good chance of being in the ablative. Okay? Great. And then there's one final one, nota bene, a key difference. You might look at is and compare it to is here, but this is why we learn our macrons, and this is why we learn our pronunciation. When we study the third declension, we really want to make sure we say like blank is, E-M-E, so that we can remember that when I see an is ending without a macron, I know that it's genitive. I don't even need to know really what declension it's from, because the only form that will have an is will be the genitive singular, with the exception of a couple of nominative singulars in the third declension as well. But if we see is with a macron, we know it's ablative, or it's either ablative or dative plural. But we see an is without a macron, we want to think genitive. Okay, genitive singular. So that's a key trick to remember as well. All right, so here's a reminder of the things we want to remember in terms of common patterns between these words. And otherwise, I suggest you just practice saying this declension aloud to yourself a couple times. Practice your chanting. Walk around and say it is a great way to do it. Practice writing it out in a notebook and then checking your answers against this video or against the chart in your textbook in Chapter 7. All good strategies, but I would practice writing it out a couple times now just to give yourself some early familiarity with it, and then go practice the Google form on this topic. All right, have a great rest of your night.